I
So
believe.
Caruso, I think he got like 3 for 37 or something like that. Which I think Caruso is he might as well. If he got the shot, I think he's a starting point guard. Like he plays defense.
Yeah,
No,
but
he's
you can't
not.
complain about like
Not a starting
coach.
point
Who
guard.
you complain
No,
about Luke Kennard? Like
right,
if
right, yeah, yeah.
like come on, he's better than
Luke
fucking Caruso.
Luke
Oh, you
Kennard
think
got
so?
Luke
Kennard.
Kennard, yes.
I'd rather have Caruso. Okay, I respect that.
He got 4 for 60, I believe. Kennard did, and Caruso just
Yeah.
got what 4 for 37. So, I mean, you're still looking at a pretty big
So
difference with
Caruso,
the
Caruso's the
salary.
better deal. But
I
even
like.
even skill set wise, I think I like Caruso more than Kennard. But in fairness to Kennard, like he had a rough. He hasn't really had a role on the Clippers.
Yeah.
He's gotten his opportunity, but he just doesn't fit with that team. I think it's a character thing. I think he's a little. He appears to be a little soft
It's Paul
out
George's
there.
fault. Oh, come on. Paul George is one of the softest players in the NBA. Stop it. He can.
I don't know about that.
Off the court. I don't know. He's like on the court, he's not that soft.
This is a soft open, man. I already pressed record. You're on, coach.
Oh my god! Why do you do that, Brad? You
I
are.
like it. It's natural.
Yeah.
People
Oh
need to
yeah.
see us in our
Yeah.
element.
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna leave Caruso alone for a little bit here, but I think he is a better a winning player. But I mean, obviously, what he had to do for Los Angeles was go out there and defend, dive on the floor. So like,
Yeah.
he did have an identified role. He did start in the finals.
That's the thing. Like I'm telling
Which
you,
is
like
crazy.
if he gets the opportunity to play like meaningful minutes and be like a starting point guard, he won on the Bulls, but like he's demonstrated he can do
There's just not
everything that
enough
you're asking.
spots though. Like we can say he's a good
Right.
backup guard, but there's the point guard position is probably the most stacked in the entire
Absolutely.
NBA.
My point is that, you know, if I wanted to build a team where like I needed to pay like a bunch of max players that weren't point guards, I'd be happy starting Alex Caruso.
Oh, to each his own, you know? And
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
that's what I love this pod. All right, this is the Triple Play Fantasy Basketball Show. In the midst of Olympic play, free agency frenzies, Summer League just started yesterday. So a lot going on in the world of basketball. Even the TPT tournament just concluded. I keep up with that. The Big Three. So
He got a deal, the
basketball
dude that hit the game winner.
with who?
I gotta check. I think like the Raptors signed him. I gotta check
Yeah,
again, but
I
some
got it
team
right
signed him.
here because I sent it to somebody and I said, "Man, I used to watch this when there was like 5 people in the stands. Now dudes are getting he signed with the Indiana Pacers. He signed with the
Pacers,
Indiana
okay.
Pacers. Yeah,
Nice. I saw that Landale, the starting center for Australia, got signed by the Spurs. So
That's
good
very
for
cool.
him. He's shooting
Because those are
55 from deep. He's
those are
been
good
impressive.
players. Like they're players that kind of been
Yeah.
playing overseas or got overlooked in college. Like those are players. So I like what's happening there.
I like, of course, I love Olympic Rubio. What a
Yes.
beautiful performance he had against the United States, dropping 38. And hey, if they don't take him out in that second quarter, I don't see us going on that run. And that was a big momentum shift. There's only 40 minutes total in a FIBA game, and if I'm
Yep.
playing against the United States and I'm Spain and I've never beat them before, I'm rolling my guy out. He's got to tell me I can't play or I'm too tired for me to sit him, because you saw they had nothing outside of him as far as they ran the entire offense through him, and it was magical. I
Most
loved
ever
watching Rubio being a scorer for a change.
most ever points scored against the US Olympic team. So if Rubio's dropping 38, I'm terrified to see what Luke is about to do.
Yeah, they got to get past France. That is
That's gonna be a tough
something we
one.
got all our eyes on. He's never lost for Slovenia. That is
17-0. That's absurd.
amazing. He's got Goran Dragic's brother, Zoltan,
Yeah.
going crazy.
Are
What
you
he
sure
dropped
it's his
like
brother,
5 or
Coach?
6 threes?
I am positive. I've kept up with the Olympics
Did you-
before. This is a factual
Did you-
brother thing.
Did you check ancestry.com? You made sure you went through all the highlights and you got it.
I got that
All
one.
right.
I got to double check. Also, if you followed Goran Dragic on IG. He's done a lot of celebrating his brother this week.
Yes.
That's cool.
Kev, good news. The Kings. I don't know if you checked out the summer league yesterday. You familiar?
No.
Davion Mitchell drops 23 in his first contest. He was all
What?
over the place.
We're already in summer league.
Summer league started yesterday.
Wow, I did not know that.
McClung for the Lakers.
How did my boy do? My boy Mac.
He had some highlights. He's not playing as many minutes as I think, but I think he played like 14 minutes, had like 11 points. He's a bucket getter.
He should be playing like all of them. Like he should be. I know he didn't get drafted, but like who else is gonna, fill that role of like getting buckets off the bench?
Joel Ajayi is starting from Gonzaga. They got two of the top players that didn't get drafted in Austin Reeves, and we'll talk about that when we get to the Lakers.
I love what the Lakers are doing, man.
Let's get to it. So obviously they traded for Russell Westbrook. Then they signed Carmelo Anthony, Wayne Ellington, Malik Monk, Dwight Howard, Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore, Thalen Horton-Tucker got re-signed. So, and you have Kendrick Nunn. What is you said you like what they're doing? So, Brad, take me into your mind. What do you think the Lakers did here in this offseason?
So I'm one of the people that even last year, like I thought a healthy LeBron and a healthy AD was the best team in the entire league. I don't care about KD, Harden, and Kyrie. They have never done it together. LeBron and AD have. And honestly, if you have two of the top 5 players in the entire league, I think you got a shot to win every year. So with that said, their biggest problem last year was that they couldn't stay healthy. Or at least both of them couldn't stay healthy at the same time when it mattered. So what do you do when you have the team, you have the players that can win, but you need a third player that can carry the load? You go get one. Like Russ is the kind of guy that, like, it doesn't matter if LeBron or AD's there, like he's gonna carry the load by himself and he'll win you some games. And that's what they get with Russ, and provided that, LeBron plays some point and, they all kind of put their egos aside, which, they're professionals, they will do that. I think that's going to work perfectly, and they're not going to miss a beat when one of them is hurt. And on top of that, you're surrounding LeBron with shooters, right? Like that's always been the key. If you surround LeBron with shooters, you're going to win because he'll hit the open guy because he draws so much attention. So the players that they're adding, you look at guys like Carmelo, who, he's been wanting to relive his glory years for forever, and now he's going to get a chance. He's going to get legitimate minutes. You got guys like Kendrick Nunn who can put it up in a hurry. You got Trevor Ariza. They've got a bunch of young talent that can shoot, and they also have older veterans that have won before and they know their role. And if called upon, they can give you exactly what you need. So I think people are looking at like the trades through the wrong lens. They're like, they gave up too much for Russ, or that Russ can't shoot, and that's what they need. They're already good. They just need to fix the problems they had last year. And I think they've done a great job of doing that. So I love their moves.
Yeah, well, my first thought was, man, this team would be badass in 2012. But I will say, like, I love the Westbrook move. Like, all those people saying they'd rather have Buddy Hield. First of all, you probably never watched Buddy Hield because he plays for the Kings. And second of all, like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you got to have a superstar. Russ is a superstar. I'm not going to be a Russ stan for the rest of my life just because he's a family guy, he plays his ass off, and he's that dude. Yeah. So I'm going to be that guy. But him with LeBron and AD, that's what you need to win a championship. And so when you're looking at what you feel around him, I think they've done well. Melo has shown he has something left. And I think that he'll fit well. He'll have that scoring ability. I like Wayne Ellington. Like, I've always kind of liked him. I think they fit the need in the role. So when you're talking about who they've gotten there, I don't know what Trevor has left. We talked about Trevor on the show, I think like a month or so ago. Like, hey, who are these guys? Can he be a 3-and-D guy still? Maybe a 3 guy. I don't know about a D guy, but he definitely can be in between there. So
I think I'm more worried about the 3 aspect. I think he can still defend. He was starting for Miami towards the latter part of the year, and he was kind of plays that 4 position. It's if he can shoot, 37% from the 3-point line or above, like that's a gift.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree with Kevin. Like, I don't know about the D part, but I assume he'll be able to shoot some threes. Like that's the skill that you can continue to develop as you get older. So I agree with you completely about Russ. Like people are acting like he's some awful like the dude's 32. Look at what we're giving to Chris Paul. Look what we're giving to Kyle Lowry. Like Russ is gonna be just fine. He's just coming off averaging another triple double. Like he's fine. If you're worried about efficiency, okay, I get it. But I think I said this in our group chat. Like the same people that don't like Russell Westbrook also don't like Allen Iverson. Like you just have to watch the game to understand what he actually brings. You can't look at efficiency metrics all the time.
And
yeah. No, God, what is his name? The dude that covers the Warriors, beat writer. I think it's Marcus Thompson. I went off. Me and him got in an argument. I'll have to send it to you guys a couple years ago because he started talking about when KD left to the Warriors. He said the main reason was because Russ is a bad teammate. And I was like, nah, man, you ain't not throwing that out there. And I had like 5 followers, and I literally just was like, this is the dumbest take I've ever seen. And I went off on him, and I was like, that's the type of guy you want on your team.
Exactly.
Like, I think the Lakers needed a guy like Russ that when they're down and when maybe LeBron's not scoring well, because they can go through those lulls. I mean, Coach is a LeBron truther, but LeBron will go through those lulls of like he just plays passive. He's not really there. Anthony Davis has kind of been hurt and off and on, and he can kind of go through that passiveness. I'll tell you who's not freaking passive is Russell Westbrook. And Russell maybe will win those 2 or 3 games in the regular season that matter, and then you get into the prime playoff spot where you're at. Like, I'm not worried about Russell. I think he fits very well with this team. Like, to me, it's the Lakers and the Nets if they stay healthy. Like, that's where I'm at right now.
And the Lakers are the favorite, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Lakers in 6 over the Nets. That's my take on that. So the moves, I mean, now that I guess they have 12 players on contract, you can't see the full picture. At first, you're definitely hesitant because when you have a roster construction with Russell Westbrook, you do need to surround with shooters. But it's a hypothetical before you get those guys in camp. And we do know that Carmelo Anthony shot his career high from the 3-point line, averaging 14 over there in Portland. He can still put it up. At this point, he's a power forward, and I think he will fit well with AD. He is not a slouch defensively. Yes, he doesn't have that same quick step that he used to have, but he bodies up. He can guard the fours of
he
the
played
league.
Great defense for Portland this year.
He did, and of course that was a terrible defensive team, but he held his own. I mean, in the playoffs, like he was matching up against Jokic, and it wasn't like
they weren't giving him minutes.
He was doing better than a lot of like the other guys, and
they give him like 20 minutes, and that's it. Like if they had given him more, maybe they would be better defensively. I'm with you.
And apparently, AD is on board with playing a lot more 5. He's been very reluctant to do this in the past. I think getting Dwight Howard back was huge. He provides really good quality minutes when he's in. He's physical. He's a really great rebounder. That's one of the things that Russell brings to the table too. I think he'll lead this team in shot attempts. I think that like he's led his team in shot attempts. I think basically his whole career. Yeah, it's not as efficient, but he gets you 12 rebounds a game and 12 assists. So
and pace.
And the Lakers were not great on the boards last year. It was really weak. They went with a different direction with the bigs. They thought they had upgrades with Gasol and Trez, and it didn't really work out that way. McGee and Howard were apparently better fits, and they get Howard back. And if you get AD playing a lot more 5, you can have a closing lineup of AD, Carmelo, LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, and then whoever's shooting well. Because Wayne Ellington, when he's hot, he's a flamethrower. Same thing with Malik Monk. When those guys get it ripping, they're out there. And then Kent Bazemore is a hustler. He's gonna lay out his body and he's gonna defend some of these better players. Yeah, like
and honestly, go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, he's really developed his 3-point shot, and that's something that it was tinkering. Like he might not be in the league anymore if he didn't develop that. Now I think he shot a career high 40% as well last year.
Yeah, like I just. Rob Pelinka has done a hell of a job. Like when it happened, I was like, you know what? This guy seems like a backstabby dude. We'll see what happens. And all he's done is just great moves from the moment he stepped in office. He's just made great moves year after year, day after day.
A lot of people rave about him and like they really like him as a person. I know Kobe. I know that's his former agent, but a lot of people like have really good things to say about Rob.
It shows by the talent that wants to come there, and look at what happens every year. Like he's not done when the trade deadline comes around for this upcoming year. they're gonna add more shooters. I don't know what they'll package, but they'll add more. Like there's nothing to be worried about with this Lakers team. Like even if you were worried about injury, they now have the pieces to withstand it. Provided it's not like a season-ending thing to like a
And
LeBron
Russell's
or
been
AD.
very durable his whole career. He had that fluke knee thing that Pat Beverly did, and then the quadricep that he was coming back off.
He
But
had the quads this past year in the first half, and then he bounced back in the second half and carried the Wizards to the playoffs.
yeah, I trust him to be on the court, basically every game. I mean, LeBron didn't miss any games until the ankle thing happened, and I know the year before he had played the year before the bubble season, he had played all 82. So they are old. So you have a mixture of some young guys with Nunn, Thalen, Horton Tucker, Malik Monk. They're all 23 and under. But then everyone else is 30, higher 30.
Yeah.
So some people are questioning, are they too old? And like we said, on paper, if this is 2012, this might be the greatest basketball team ever assembled. But
it's all about the present, right? Like they're too old for like a dynasty build, but they're not too old for this year. Everybody that's playing this year can still play and play at a very high level. Like that's like a fantasy, a dynasty draft type of mindset to say they're too old. Like this year, there's not a player on that team that the league doesn't respect.
The guy that I'm worried about the most, actually, now that I kind of dive deeper and thought about it, is Marcus Gasol is taking a step back. In watching him for Spain, he just did not look well. Like the Herman Gomez, Garuba minutes when they were playing the United States were much better than the Gasol brothers.
He said like this is probably his last go around for international ball.
Yep.
Honestly, I think Dwight Howard's going to get those Gasol minutes.
Yeah. I agree. I think you're right about the age thing, which is true. And hey, 32 is the new 22. That's what I keep telling myself too. But I think when you're looking at the roster, what they've done, I think they can win it this year. And to a point that I wanted to bring up is that they got knocked out early, so they have a lot more rest than these other guys. And then KD's playing in the Olympics. A lot of these dudes are playing in the Olympics. They're not, and so now they're going to be fresher than probably a lot of teams out there. And so give them credit. I mean, they're building it for this year. And, LeBron's got 2 years left, maybe 1 to 2, like where he really has that door wide open. So, I mean, this is it.
You got Coach gritting his teeth, man. He don't like to hear that.
I know.
My opinion on that is he's going to play till he wants to. And I will never count him out. I'm not going to put a 2-year date on him. I mean, shoot, Tom Brady's about to hop out there 44 years old. I know it's a different sport. But if as long as he's engaged mentally, I don't know. If my team is coming back like this, and I got Russell and AD to lean on, maybe that buys you a couple years. Like maybe it's like
that's the
fair.
point. Like that's
Easy
why
money.
he wanted to be on that team, right? Like he wanted somebody else to take the torch while he could like turn it off and on.
Well, and
I think he's going to be around for a while.
Bronny's a sophomore,
yes.
So 2 more years plus that's another one. That means 3 years. He always said he wanted to be in the league when his son.
Bronny looks good, man.
Oh yeah, he's
finally getting those.
He's got a trigger.
He's finally getting those minutes now. Like because he was coming off that ACL injury, whatever minutes restriction he was on, he's off that now. I've been watching some of his highlights on YouTube. The dude looks like a stud, and he's like a kid. Wait, 16, 17?
He's a really good shooter, and he just keeps getting more and more bounce, doing more dunks, and playing
his vision. He's got LeBron's vision. It's really crazy to see a high school player.
He's a very poised basketball player. I don't think he's going to be like a top tier player of his draft, but I think we're looking at an NBA player in the future.
Oh, that's no doubt. He's definitely an NBA player. I think he's a top tier in the class because you got to remember, like he's playing with, guys that are like top 5 in the nation, and he's a sophomore. So like he's not going to get those minutes that other people his age are getting, but he will when it's senior time.
His teammate Amari Bailey is one of the best players in that class, and
that's a lottery pick.
We won't see him this year, but the year after that, because he's only a junior.
Yeah,
which is amazing. So we're switching gears a little bit here to LeBron's former team in Miami, and they made some splashes here in the offseason, and they signed Kyle Lowry or a trade. I guess they send Precious Achiuwa. They do a little sign and deal with Goran Dragic. They bring back Duncan Robinson at a 4 for $90 million to solidify that starting five. You'll see Tyler Hero being their sixth man. They also add 2 NBA champions, PJ Tucker and Markieff Morris. Does this make
And
the
Kyle
Heat
Lowry.
Well, and Kyle Lowry, who's a champion. So the pedigree is strong over there. Pat Riley never seems to amaze us. But this is looking like a legitimate threat in the East, Kev. What do you think about Miami, their off season, and their season trajectory?
Yeah, I like what they did. They obviously went and splashed in there. Lowry's 35. This is his 19th year, I believe, or 18th, something crazy like that. He came in at age 20. I'm probably doing math wrong, but it's somewhere around there, like 16th, 17th year. Like, he's been in the league forever, it feels like. I like that fit. I think him and Jimmy are going to be there, and shout out to, I think it was Brad that talked about Duncan Robinson going to get a big deal. And he did. I think that's the highest deal ever for anybody that went undrafted. So he set a record for the highest amount of money that's anybody ever made being undrafted. I love the PJ Tucker move. That's probably my favorite, like, kind of under the radar thing, because we know KD hates him. And that's a big loss to the Bucks, I think, just because of what he brought to that team. And so I like what they did. I don't know, though. I just don't see. I love their fit. I love actually what they have, and Lowry's a very upgradable point guard for that position. But are they better? Does this make them a top 3 team in the East? I think they're borderline number 3 and 4-ish. Them and Philly, I think it's close. But depending on what Philly does, I've hated what Philly has done. So probably in that 3 category. But do they have enough to get by the Nets? I don't think so. But I like what they've done. They had to do this. This is how you kind of build, and they picked the right pieces.
Brad?
I agree. I think, especially with the PJ Tucker move, I think it was brilliant not to let him go back to Milwaukee and get like pennies. I think PJ Tucker decided, look, I'm at an age now where I need to get all the money I can before I bow out, and while I'm still useful. And PJ Tucker is so interchangeable on defense. You see how he was used in Houston. You see how he was used in Milwaukee. He was just as important a piece to getting that championship as Giannis almost. Like, what he was doing defensively was incredible. PJ Tucker was an incredible get. Kyle Lowry, I think, is a very solid get. That's an improvement over Dragic, at least defensively. Offensively, you could make an argument either way, but I think Lowry's a better 3-point shooter, and he's got that finals experience. And then on top of that, Miami's known for having the most stringent, body weight and body fat requirements in the entire league. I remember they didn't let James Johnson even play because he was, 0.1% over his body fat limit or whatever, and he was still like chiseled up. I don't know what that's going to do to Kyle Lowry, but I'm sure it's gonna make him, he's known as a pretty thick boy around the league, but
yeah,
I think he's gonna come back chiseled. It's probably gonna
prolong
his
bone. He's just big bone.
Right. It's probably gonna prolong his career, but like whatever it is, like I think Miami's gonna be great for him, and we know he can play. I think this makes Miami the 3rd best team in the East, but I'm not afraid of them. Like, I think it's a 2-horse race, so 3rd team in the East doesn't really mean anything.
I'll go and I'll make the argument for Miami being legitimate. Now, they're not my favorite. I mean, clearly, I think we all have the Nets here, but I think that they do pose a big threat defensively.
Isn't that crazy, Coach? How like we all have the Nets after the Bucks just won the championship.
Well, I mean, they did play a Nets team that had a hobbled James Harden and no Kyrie Irving. So
true. My bad. I interrupted.
In a game 7 with the toe on the line. So like, I think you have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about the Bucks, that they're not like unbeatable or indestructible. They did lose to Miami just the year prior, and Miami didn't have Kyle Lowry at that time.
That's right.
They had Goran Dragic that was playing insane, but Kyle Lowry is a super upgrade, especially defensively. As a catch and 3 shooter, he brings it. He's a leader. He's going to do all the extras. I think him and Jimmy are really good friends. I think that's going to be a vibe, especially with Adebayo, which he could be the most versatile defender that we have in the league. I know that Ben Simmons kind of gets that praise, but I think we really need to take a look at Adebayo. I think he's a top 3 defender in our NBA, and we're seeing that in the Olympics. He's just all over the place. He's a really good passer. Him and Duncan have a good relationship, and then Duncan Robinson, he's like 6'10". He's playing the 2.
6'8".
And it's 6'8". If he feels like a
Might as well be
6'10",
6'10". Yeah, you're right.
yeah, I mean that's still pretty. It's still pretty good size for
That's
a
2
shooting
inches.
guard. And then
Yeah.
and then if we can get Hero back in the mindset of playing basketball, not worrying about what happens outside of the court or where he's gonna go after practice, he could really embrace that 6-man role, and he could be a really, really good shooter once he has an identified role. And I feel like he could run with that.
Hero's gonna be just fine. I think people are really panicking on him. Like that dude, it's a sophomore slump, right? Like a new role.
His numbers weren't worse. It just was because of his bubble play, and I think that was the best thing for
change.
him. Put him in a resort where all he can do is hoop. He can't bring whoever else to the hotel, and it's just him and just basketball. He excels. That was a good situation for him. And he went to the finals, so he was feeling himself last year.
Hey, man, young kid in Miami, coach. Yeah. Come on. Come on. I was a young kid at Chico, and I was doing that stuff. So I don't tell my wife.
You do got to have concerns, though, with his maturity.
He's a kid. Like, he's going to do kid things. I think a little adversity in his career is going to be very solid for him. He's going to come back very strong next year.
He's a kid, but so is like
you've seen his flashes.
And like
come on.
Trae Young is a kid, but Trae Young is like.
But Trae Young also had a rough
some stuff.
Trae Young had some rough stuff going on. He broke out this year, but Trae Young's older than Tyler Hero. Like I'm not worried at all. As long as you see flashes from young kids, you have no reason to be worried. And Hero's shown his flashes.
He'll never lose his shot. He's one of our better shooters in the entire league. So he does have that working for him. All right, another team making a big splash this offseason is Chicago. Chicago is handing out a lot of money to retool that guard backcourt, bringing in Lonzo Ball at a $85 million number that he could have got 80 on the extension with the Pels, and they said no way, he's not near worth that. He ended up getting that plus another 5. You got DeMar DeRozan getting a new look from the Spurs. That guy is still an exceptional player. Still a 22 6-6 guy. And
got paid
he gets a fresh look. And instead of being like a third, fourth fiddle, the idea was maybe he's going to go to the Lakers. Now he gets put in the front line over there, the Bulls, and you got Zach LaVine. And so I think he'll go with the 3-guard lineup to start. And Vucevic. And then Patrick Williams will probably be your starting power forward. And he showed some really good defensive versatility. He started all year last year. So
he showed good. He was real good on defense.
Yeah, and he showed signs that he could become a 3-and-D guy. And I know I pegged him as probably a bust the year before, but I like what I see out of Patrick Williams out of 1 year. And I think he's got really good room to grow, and he's out there guarding the best player on the other team. And that's one weakness of this Bulls team is the defense. So you're bringing Alex Caruso off the bench. So what's our thoughts on the Bulls' new lineup? It looks cool on paper. Kev?
I don't know, man. Like I made a joke to my Bulls fans. I said, you guys are an amazing 6 seed that loses in the first round. And they got mad at me. But I don't know. Like when I look at the roster, I like Lonzo. I actually don't mind the Lonzo. Like that's actually, fair.
It's Lonzo's very good.
Lonzo's good, and I think that with LaVine being there, I think they fit. Like that's a good fit for him. Like he picked a perfect spot to go to where he can it'll extrapolate kind of his skills and his skill base, and he'll look good. He doesn't have to do too much, and there's gonna be games where he doesn't have to score, and that's okay. DeMar, he's okay. He's always been kind of that guy in there. I think when you're looking at just Chicago, I think it just comes down to how good's LaVine. Like, what do we think LaVine is? Do we think LaVine is the dude, or do we think he's a filler point stats all-star? And is that really what he's going to be? Can he take that next step like all these other young guys? I don't see the Trae Young next step in him, though. Like, I don't see that kind of next step. I know Coach likes LaVine more than I do, but I don't see it.
I'm right with you. I'm not a big LaVine guy, but KD does, right, Brad? KD likes some Zach LaVine.
That's true. Go ahead, Coach. I want to hear what you think about the team.
Okay, so for me, I am intrigued to see LaVine a little bit off the ball and somebody else creating something for him. It's been all focused on him, and he's been able to kind of overcome that. But I think when you have a player like Lonzo Ball, he's one of the best transition point guard. He gets the rebound, he goes. I could see him throwing full court lobs like we used to see LeBron and D Wade do back there in Miami. DeMar DeRozan, it's a good change of pace, and then in the half court, he can go get you some buckets. I think that it's really cool that they'll probably make the playoffs. Like we're looking at a top 8 team, and yeah, they'll probably lose in that first round. I don't think they have enough defense. And Vooch is a really good player. Like you got some big names. I don't think that they're what we just talked about some of these Eastern Conference teams, and what they have that this team doesn't have is the other end, which is defense and chemistry. And so when they run into teams like Miami, when they run into teams like Milwaukee, and then the Nets, you want to get in a shootout with them, you're just not going to win. So I think that they're just a little bit outmatched. But I do like, them trying to do something, because Chicago's been bad for years now. Ever since the whole Derrick Rose thing happened, they have not been good at all.
Yeah, so I'm probably in the middle of both of you guys. Like I agree with a lot of what both of you said. I think the Bulls GM is doing like all the right things, and that like they're going for it. Like he's trying to put together teams with big names, with people you can count on, and he's paying. Like it's always been like a constant rebuild since Derrick Rose left, and now they're actually going for it. This is no doubt a playoff team where there's somewhere between like 4 and 8, but they're there. And I think they're going to have a lot of games where you're like, okay, can they do something? This almost reminds me of like the Portland of the East now. Like they've got a lot of big names with players that can do a lot of great things. But
that's a fair comp as far as trajectory and season outlook. Yeah.
I don't see them as like a finals contender. I don't see them as a top echelon team. I think they're going to have some games where they beat some of those top echelon teams, but they're not that as an identity. I think this is going to be a better 2K team than it is a real life team. I think, Coach, you brought up a great point with the defense. And then offensively, I think they're going to be one of the slowest teams in the league, like pace-wise. Like, I don't think of Lonzo as a run-and-gun point guard. He's more of like a half-court. He'll make the right pass or hit a three. He's that kind of guy. And LaVine, he's got those crazy highlight dunks, but they're not a fast break team. Vucevic, if they go through him, that's going to be slow. He's a post-up guy. DeRozan, he's a mid-range guy, but he's gotten his 3-point the last year, but I still think of him as predominantly half-court mid-range shooter. I think in today's game, you want 3-and-D, you want 3-point shooting, you want pace, and they really only have a handful of players that do that. So, and they're not going to start like a guy like Kobe White. He's a good pace guy, but is he 6, 7, 8 off the bench now? Like I don't know.
Well, thank God he's on the bench now, because he is that kind of like that 6-man scorer, and right. Like he can get hot and shoot, but he's just not he's not tough to depend lead on. Guard, a lead point guard. I think him and Caruso coming in together off the bench will
Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen was the kind of guy.
Now that's the last chip to fall, because
but he's the kind of guy they need, but he's going to go somewhere and get paid.
Yeah, so the sign and trade though is still there, and so we'll see what they do. That is the last domino to I guess fall. So I was definitely going to mention that,
and they were playing him as like a 4 and a 5, and he's a 2 or a 3. He's just super tall. Like
they've mishandled him this entire time.
But they need him. That's the thing.
I hope he gets in an opportunity where he can showcase. He is a really, really, really good shooter.
If he was on that team, I'd like them almost more than Miami.
It's just it was a terrible fit with Vooch.
It's a bad fit. Yeah. And so I don't know. I think this is going to be a team that wins some games. I think Chicago can be excited about what they have. They can even be, optimistic. They can probably convince themselves that they're, a finals bound team, which is what you want to do as a GM. Like with the Wizards, when Beal and Westbrook got together, I was thinking to myself, okay, we get a third, or we sprinkle in a piece here, we could really contend. And that's what you want. Like, you want your fans to be excited about the team. And I think their GM has done that. So I like the moves, but they're not moving the needle to a championship contender to me.
And I like Billy Donovan as a coach. I'm curious to see what he does with the offense with this type of firepower.
It's going to be slow.
Yeah, I guess when I first thought like Lonzo to Levine, I just thought like, oh, there's only one wide receiver. Like everyone else is blocking. There's just no one downfield. It's like, okay, well, all we got to do is watch that one guy.
And they're not going to be like defensive specialists, so it's not going to be like a bunch of steals and then outlet pass for the fast break. Like, they're not that team. So it's just going to be slow half-court offense, which, they'll be good at it, but it's not the recipe this year.
And Kev, to touch on that Levine thing, I have him way lower than a lot of people do on their big boards. Like I wasn't giving him any All NBA. I mean, yes, the COVID thing really messed with him on that, but I wasn't giving him any thought really. He was more outside of that top 30 players in the league as opposed to top 15. I just don't. I don't buy into him. I watch him play on Team USA, and it's like
he's holding his own. He's coming up a little bit. He had a rough few games. Yeah, he's all right.
He's just not like when you look at all the other players. I just like see him as just like a step behind everyone, like Booker, Holiday, Tatum, KD, Dame. I think he's just like, to me, he's just lower than all of those guys.
The thing he's got to learn is how he's been playing on bad teams for what, like, the last couple years. And so
his entire career.
Yeah. He's picked up some bad habits, and the thing I think that he's going to have to develop is like, how do I play within this team? How can we make sure that, it's not just me getting 28 shots? How do I make sure that everybody gets involved? And the growth for them is going to have to be key. But the Olympics could be huge for him, so that's always something to watch, because everybody gets that Olympic bump. Like, there's a real thing playing with dudes like that for 11. It'd be like us, coach. If we're teaching with 11 amazing teachers throughout the country, inevitably we're going to get better. I know you're a PE teacher, so you don't really need your mind. But when you have those different, like when you have those things, like you do get that bump. So we could see Levine getting that bump.
And we touch on cognitive aspects as well in physical education. Go ahead, Brad.
In Levine's defense, like I don't think he's picked up a whole bunch of bad habits. I think on all the teams he's been on, he has to be the primary scorer. He has to take 30 shots. So
that's fair.
And in that aspect, he's done exactly what he's supposed to do, and he's probably gotten better every single year, right? Like, he's one of those guys who has that positive trajectory. There's not really much more you can ask of him other than to learn how to fit in with
and play defense.
Three new stars, and that's hard to do. So
I know he's out there trying, but he's still a bad defender. He still gets
he's a horrible defender.
Hit back door all the damn time. He's on the back of his heels,
But so is Dame, right? Like it's all good. You just gotta get in where you fit in. Accentuate your positives, like Giannis.
I have noticed some negatives to Dame's game. I don't know if this is the right time to talk about
really?
it.
Wow. Good. You coming on board? You coming on board with us?
This is called growth, coach.
No. But I don't know if it's a USA team thing, but the way he operates on offense is very perimeter driven, and it's very to the 3-point line, to the step. He's not.
ISO hero ball.
He doesn't get in the lane that well. Like, he doesn't play make like he does it sometimes, but like I thought that's what's missing about this USA team that Drew Holiday's brought to the table. But like, you think about like Steph Curry, James Harden, those guys, they hit threes, they shoot threes, but they get in the lane. They really do play make. They create space. They get people that to hone in when. Like, Dame is just looking for that pick and roll and either step back on you or then jet to the cup. But it's almost selfish. Like, it doesn't get everybody else involved. It doesn't make anybody else play
That's
better.
What we've been saying.
But KD doesn't make anybody play better either. He's still a weapon. But the fact that he's 3 levels,
because he always draws double teams, and he'll always make the right. He'll always drive to the hoop if the lane's open. If he's got an open shot, he'll shoot it. Like, KD is. But
Lillard's a better teammate, so that's why I kind of think.
What does that mean? Why do you say that?
Well, you won the award, teammate of the year. It's voted on players. Like I mean, my fault. It's in the trophy case.
All right.
But
You and these awards, coach. You and these awards.
Man.
I'm done.
these laws they get.
I quit. Didn't Kevin Harden win the MVP that one year when the players voted?
Hey, he won back to back MVP. That's a celebrity game. That's
I can't argue with that. If I say why is he a better teammate, you bring the heat of like he won teammate of the year.
He won the award. Like
you win. No, you win. You got it. That's all you.
He actually won that award. All right. News of the day: Kemba Walker gets bought out and goes back home.
Accent on that. I like that. Say that again.
Cardiac Kemba. I love Kemba. And in the last well, he does have those ties, and so he goes back to New York. A great New York point guard. I remember Cardiac Kemba, like when the buzz really happened when he's in the conference finale against a great Pittsburgh team, and he makes McGee fall like two different ways. Hits the buzzer beater. That happened in Madison Square Garden. He's a player that's made for the Garden. Injuries were hampering him last year. I love that he gets a new look here. And then I feel like that defines Derrick Rose's role to be more of that bench spark so that he's not playing too many minutes because, Tibbs loves to throw his guys out there in minutes, but you got to hold back on Derrick Rose with his injury history and the fact that he's getting older. So they get Cardiac, Kemba Walker. They sign Evan Fournier, who's playing out his mind for France. Then they draft two defensive guards in Quentin Grimes and Miles McBride. What do you like about the New York Knicks offseason, and do you think this upgrades the team, Brad?
I hate every single move the Knicks have made, except for signing Derrick Rose. The reason the Knicks turned things around this year is because of defense and because of Tibbs. They signed Kemba, who plays no defense and has problems staying on the court and is now going to get an onslaught of minutes. And then they signed Fournier, who also I don't think of as a defensive guy, though he does play some. And I just don't – it doesn't fit their identity now. And you're also hurting RJ Barrett, who has made such tremendous strides playing point guard and shooting guard, and now he's going to become the full-time shooting guard. Like, I just don't – I don't get it, man. I don't think this makes them better. I think this takes away the development of the young players that have come up. I think this takes away from some of Randall's progression because now he's going to have to cede some usage to Kemba and Fournier. It almost seems like these moves were made without consulting Tibbs. Like I don't get it.
That's very interesting take. Kev, what do you got to say about that? Because I have a difference of opinion on this one.
The Knicks are this is terrible, but the Evan Fournier, or I don't even know how to say his last name.
Fournier. It's like Battier. Remember Battier? Yeah, that's great.
Right? I don't watch French basketball players. Yeah, don't Google it. I did when I was a kid. I would say that deal is the worst deal for agency. You cannot give him $78 million because he doesn't fit Tibbs' team. Like, that's not what they do. Where does he fit? So I was trying to figure out, like, the roster construction, what they have. So they're probably going to put, RJ at the 2. I'm assuming to put Kemba, obviously, at the 1. They put him at small forward. But he's not going to – yes, I think he averaged, 15 points the last, at Orlando last whatever. God, Alec Burks could fill that role, and you re-sign him for cheaper.
Alex Burks was incredible last year.
Yeah.
I hate all of these moves except for Derrick Rose. Him and Tibbs have like a magical relationship, and he plays defense, and he's been getting like 30 minutes a game, and he's staying healthy. Like, I think Derrick Rose needs to go wherever Tibbs wants him to go and just keep doing that. Like, I love that signing. They even paid him, which made me feel good. I want Derrick Rose to get all the money he can. But I'm with you, Kev. Like, nothing that they did fits the identity that made them a playoff team last year.
Yeah, and is Nerlens Noel worth $32 million over 3 years? Like, is he really worth that? Like, I just feel like they're reaching right now to be. There is no way this team wins. I mean, we saw what they did in the first round last year. They needed scoring. Kemba can't really stay on the court, and if he can, fine. But is Evan Fournier? Yeah. is he worth 15 points for that amount of money they spent? Like, I just don't see what their roster construction is looking like. I just don't understand what the Knicks are doing. I feel like they threw money at people that they shouldn't have, and I just don't think it fits very well. And I don't see them making I still make the playoffs probably, but you got to remember they made the playoffs after Julius Randle had one of the most all-pro years of he's ever had. If he regresses, this team could maybe miss the playoffs, and that's crazy to think about.
And he's gonna regress because now he's got to cede some of that usage to Fournier and Kemba now. Like this undid all the progress that they made last year, and I just don't get. They could have signed DeRozan if they wanted to, and kept everything in motion, and then got scoring from DeRozan. Like what are you doing? Like they could have signed Kyle Lowry. They could have done so many different things. I just don't get it.
I don't think that they could have done either of them. I think the both of those players had control over where they were going. I know that the Lowry to Miami thing had been,
but they were rumored
for a long time.
That was all rumored.
Now the DeRozan thing was a lot more likely to happen. So this is where my bite back is a little bit. They in the playoffs they struggled with offense. People being able to create their own shot. Julius Randle struggled heavily when he was that number one option and they were going to him that entire time. Nobody else on the team can create their own shot. So, like, I know, we're talking about the young guys and their development, but Fournier can get his own shot. We saw him score 27 on Team USA 2 weeks ago.
On Team USA, no. You saw that in Olympic ball. You didn't see that. You didn't see that in the NBA.
And Kemba was an all-star. Yeah, okay, but like he's an undeniably really good shooter, and he can create. He can actually get his own shot.
He does not create. He's never demonstrated he can create in the NBA. He's a spot-up guy.
No, he's not. That's not it, though.
And it's real good. He's real good at it. I'm with you there.
He can wiggle a little bit. So look, I don't want to be defending Fournier because I think that is an awful contract as well, Kev. Like, so I don't want to start doing that. But that my bite back was that the offensively in the playoffs, Derrick Rose was their best player. Kemba Walker, I think you try. I don't know what type of contract he's signing off of the buyout. I'm sure that he's kind of gambling on himself and trying to get probably a 1-year contract where he can sign a bigger contract after the offseason. But you take a gamble on Kemba Walker. He was a multiple time All-Star. Like
Yep.
I know the writing on last year was really bad look and he was banged up, but like he has an entire offseason and maybe he comes back healthy and motivated and fresh and playing in his hometown in New York. Kemba Walker could have a resurgence, and I could definitely see the New York faithful getting behind him and him having a good season.
To your point, I don't think the Kemba we've seen the last 2 years is Kemba Walker. I think the Kemba we saw in Charlotte, that's Kemba Walker. Yeah. I just don't know if we're ever going to see that again. That's my argument. And even if we do see it again, with the money and the draft pick that you invested in RJ Barrett and the new defensive scheme that has propelled you into a playoff team, why do you decide Kemba's your guy? That's my argument. But you might be right, Coach. Like if we get Kemba of Charlotte, we're talking about a completely different. That makes me and Kevin wrong. Like the defense part doesn't matter because they'll be getting 30 from Kemba.
Well, in the playoffs, you can put the ball in his hands and he can operate much like Trae Young was, killing New York on the other end. If you get, prime him. It is something to worry about when
theoretically,
a knees definitely make you question.
My biggest thing is, I know we need to move on, is like when I look at the roster, so if you say Kemba's the guy they're going to go to down the stretch, that's fine. But where does he rank in the Eastern Conference Finals of all those, or Eastern Conference of all the dudes you want to have the ball? I would say he's outside the top 10 of even those guys. Like you're looking at just even if you go to the Nets, you're going to want all three of those guys before you're going to want Kemba. You go to the Bucks. You love Giannis. You want Giannis to hand the ball in his hands over Kemba. I would. Giannis has actually shown he's more of a consistent free throw shooter than Kemba sometimes. Kemba struggled at the line in Boston. Like Kemba struggled in clutch. So you're looking at would you rather have Middleton than Kemba down the stretch?
Yes.
So, when you're looking at those two top teams, and we can go through them all, but we don't have to. Like, the thing that worries me is who's going to get the ball, who's going to score consistently, and can he stay healthy? I don't like it. I love Kemba. I just don't like the fit. I don't like what the Knicks are doing. But the Knicks are going to Nick.
To Coach's point, like he might have been bargain basement. Like you might have gotten Kemba for super cheap, in which case, why not roll the dice? So
Well,
I do understand.
If you gave Fournier that much money, you gave Noel. I mean, I know they had more cap than anyone else, but he probably didn't get a big contract here. He was
the
just
thing,
looking
Coach.
for an opportunity.
That's what it was, Coach. Like they had more cap than anyone else, and they thought they had to spend it. So they just spent it on players that they could get as opposed to players that they should have gotten. And that's always the recipe for disaster.
To leave this, I think that they got better. I just think that the other teams in the Eastern Conference got better too, and they have no chance of getting out the first round. So like I see you guys' point. It's cool to have New York though, even in the playoffs to begin with. It's a small victory, and in Chicago as well. Some of these bigger market teams that have kind of been out for a while. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm not gonna go out there on the limit and say like they're really good, but I do like the Kemba thing, and I'm intrigued to watch it play out. Now,
I hope you're right, because I like seeing Kemba succeed.
Brad, we're going to start this one with you, Devontae Graham, who you've quoted as a max player. They draft LaMelo Ball, in his position at that head lead guard kind of took a step back. He did fit in decently with him and Rozier, even though that the ball wasn't in his hand as much. He's shown to be a quality.
Shot, though. He couldn't find a shot this past year, but
it was broke. But he did provide like assists, and he was doing some of the other things. He gets to the line at a high rate, so he still has parts of his game that are still effective when he's not shooting the ball too well. I think his stroke will come back to form because of how he played the year before. They also get Valanciunas. This is the New Orleans Pelicans. So we're fitting around Zion. We got Devontae Graham instead of Lonzo Ball. Valanciunas is your new center. They draft Trey Murphy III. It seems like a great 3-and-D in Herb Jones. What do you think about the New Orleans Pelicans? And obviously they signed Willie Green as well, Brad. And by signed Green, that's their head coach. Willie Green is now their new head coach.
Yeah, so I'll characterize everything by saying I think Zion's gone eventually. Like I don't think he's gonna be with this team much longer. Yeah. So with that said, I think you still got Brandon Ingram, you still got Zion. Valanciunas helps, but again, that's a slow paced guy, not a great defender. Graham, he is an improvement on the offensive end over Lonzo, but you're going to miss a lot of the playmaking ability that Lonzo had. You're going to miss the chemistry he had with Zion. Zion had said he wanted Lonzo to be back, and they didn't bring him back. I don't really think much. I'm like neutral on these moves. Like I just don't think of the Pelicans as a contender. I don't think of them as a developmental team. They're just almost in limbo. They've got a mix of good young stars, older vets, and like players that are trying to, revive their careers almost. So I don't really think much of them. They're going to win some games. They're going to lose some games. There's nothing to call back upon. They're going to be a team that during the trade deadline, when you need a piece, you're going to say, oh, how much is Brandon Ingram? Oh, how much is Devontae Graham? Like, how much is Valanciunas? They're going to be a team that's selling at the trade deadline, I think. So they're not really building anything.
I just thought of it because Ingram did get one of those extensions. Are they a possible Ben Simmons trade partner? If you can get Ingram for Simmons and some other things, because at some point you got to try to save Zion by any means necessary, and we don't know if necessarily that Ingram and Zion are a good pairing. Ingram is a really good player. He's proven that. But do they necessarily fit and have a trajectory going forward?
Ben Simmons will be great for the Pelicans, but they don't have anything that Philly would want. I don't think you'd lose so much, even if it was Brandon Ingram. Like you'd lose.
They do have draft capital, right? They have all the Lakers.
They're not playing for the future. They're trying to win the championship. They want players.
Yeah, they are playing for the championship because Embiid.
I will say, like, I love Brandon Ingram. Everyone knows in this show I like Ingram just as a Duke guy. The problem is, like, I literally just came out a story today from like an hour ago talking about how the Pelicans brief saying the Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram duo doesn't work. And they talked about how Ingram does most of his work from 10 to 20 feet, mid-range kind of. He is that kid, and Zion is going to do most of his work from within the arc. So the problem is that they just don't really fit together well together. And I go back to remember when they were talking about how bad the Lakers got fleeced in that trade for Anthony Davis. And when you look at it now, they really didn't. I mean, Lonzo's gone. Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, 3 first-round picks, and including that 4th overall, which we know what that turned into. So I think the Lakers. I still think the Lakers. I think the Lakers won that deal. And so when you look at the deal, what they did, and it's just funny to me when I see that stuff, and it's just like, no, they got the best player in the deal. That's what you look for. As far as the deals go, I mean, this doesn't do much for me. They're in a weird limbo spot, and they got to make Zion happy. They got to figure out a way to do that. But Zion's the type of guy like Giannis that you have to build around, and they're not doing that.
In fairness, I don't think anybody's ever turned down that rookie extension. So when it does come, that's going to help. They're going to be able to offer him a lot of money. But if he chooses, he can make enough money outside of the game for him to just choose to go where he wants to go, I think he's gone. And I think that's what he's going to do.
Well, and if he wants to get one of those, $200 deals, $200 million deals,
$200.
200. That's how much money they get. It's $200.
Yo,
that's
Coach,
the equivalent for us.
Before we leave, because I think we're running up on an hour here. All right, nobody's talking about this. I don't think Kawhi is going to play next year. He tore his ACL late in the playoffs, and that takes at least, give or take a year to heal. And then he left tear's a tear. And he left San Antonio. He left San Antonio because they were rushing his knee along, and he didn't feel he was ready. What do you think are the odds that he doesn't play this year? And he opted out. What do you think is going to happen?
I think he opts or he signs some type of contingent contract with the Clippers, stays at home. He gets healthy. He sits the year out. He's not playing this year. I agree with you. I don't see him on the basketball court, and the Clippers are going to just Paul George is probably going to have a terrific year, all-star and all of that. But I think they'll just be waiting for the following year. And we just talked about people that hit. We talked about Anthony Davis. That was a hit. They won the championship. Drew Holiday, they gave up a haul. They won a championship. It was worth it. Now, for the Clippers, they gave up everything. And at this point, it's a complete disappointment. And if I'm a Clippers fan, I am nervous, though, because you don't know what's going on in Kawhi Leonard's head. So my indication is that he comes back. But, again, I don't know what Kawhi's doing. A lot of people thought he was going to go to the Lakers. That was the favorite. Always the Lakers or Clippers, or you go back to Toronto. But it ended up being the Clippers, and really no one really was on top of it, especially then when you find out Paul George comes, mind blown. Kev, what do you think about Kawhi and the state of the Clippers?
Yeah, I think Kawhi, from everything, it's weird because usually in free agency, the top guy gets signed and everybody else gets signed. So there's something out there saying Kawhi's probably not going anywhere. Because if there was really any indications of it, I think a lot of teams with cap money would have been all right, we got to wait because there's a chance we could get Kawhi. But I do think that he sits out a long time. And there is a possibility that he's going to sit out for more than half the season. The Clippers are in a weird spot. We've talked about that, how they built that team, that roster. I do think Lou's a good coach. But with Paul George there, can he be that guy that kind of propels them? I do think they have some odd fits on that roster. I think he signs a 2-year deal, maybe an extension, 2 years, and tries to get to around that $40 million if he can, depending on where their cap space is at. But they got to win. I think they're the most if they don't win this year, there is going to be some serious doubts about them. But I don't think they do win this year. I think those other teams passed them by, and I don't see it being that cut and dry that the Clippers are there. But I worry about it. Kawhi is an interesting person. That's what I'll say about him. You can't read him.
I feel like he's going to sign a 1-and-1. He's going to get paid to be hurt, and then at the end of the year have an option to either get back on board for another year or leave.
They did
get paid
nothing.
$37 million just to not play a single minute.
They did practically nothing in free agency. I don't know. Do they think that they would have won the championship had Kawhi not got hurt. Like, why would they not do any moves when you look at your counterparts in the Western Conference and what they've done?
Yeah, they
Same
retained
thing.
a Batum, and then they got a couple young guys in the draft, including Keon Johnson. But like, yeah, like to your
Same thing
point,
with
they haven't addressed the roster.
same thing with Portland. Like, Dame he's on the precipice of demanding a trade, and he just wants to see you guys build a better team around him because what you have isn't enough. And then you go get Cody Zeller. Like, what's happening here?
They traded for Greg Brown, who's very raw and has no impact on right now. They lose Zach
There's no way
Collins.
Dame is confident in his team right now.
They gave Norman Powell a pretty good, a pretty hefty contract as well to be there. I guess
they lost with him making half that, and now it's going to be even harder. Like I don't know. I think Dame's out of there eventually. I don't know when, but he's gone.
I do kind of want to squeeze one in. I like what the Jazz did. The Jazz got Rudy Gay and Hassan Whiteside, and I think those two guys are big for their team. I don't necessarily say that puts them over the edge, but their backup center position with Favors last year did not work out well. I know he was a familiar face, but did not look good.
What do you think the Jazz are missing?
What Gobert does. What are they missing?
Yeah, like what's going to get them over that championship hump? Because they can't. Mitchell's been giving it all he's got.
Like they've got better than Donovan Mitchell.
I think you got to move Rudy Gobert. Like he's just not.
No,
he's what you can't play him. He gets played off the court in the playoffs. Like what are you? They attack him. Like what?
He didn't get played off this year. That happened in the past, but he did not. He was defensive player of the year.
He was still attacked.
Part of that team. And
he was attacked this year in the playoffs.
All NBA.
He should have got played off.
What do they need? They need Joe Ingles. Like, unfortunately, Joe Ingles, good player, but you need somebody that's a little bit better that can create their offense outside of Donovan Mitchell. It's way too much on him. Mike Conley got hurt. Let's not forget that he didn't play until that last game of the series. That was a huge blow to that team. Like they just had injuries hit him at the wrong time. Donovan Mitchell was on a half an ankle as well. Like I'm not making excuses for it. Sounds like I'm making excuses for Utah. I just don't think they're as good as the other teams in the West. They're a really damn good team, but they're a team that can't get overrun.
You think they need scoring, and they got Rudy Gay and Hassan Whiteside.
Oh, now Rudy Gay is a good guy that you can put in and plug into that like your final lineup. Like I think that he's an upgrade on Georges Niang. I like Whiteside as far as those center minutes when Gobert's off the court, they're not going to get killed like they did. When Gobert actually did take a seat in the playoffs, you've seen the other teams just go on these huge runs and Favors getting dunked on. Kawhi put him in the rim. It's just their role players just honestly got to be better. And I guess maybe that's me making an excuse for Donovan Mitchell, but he played outstanding. He was amazing again in the playoffs. So I just think that just kind of like how they're not as good as, or Portland's not as good as them, but sometimes the other teams are just better. And you might be a 50, 60 win team, but so the Utah Jazz a long time ago was a really damn good team with Karl Malone and John Stockton. You know what they couldn't do? They couldn't beat Michael Jordan. So it's sometimes the other guy is just better and they don't have that heliocentric superstar. So I guess that's where it's a level between Donovan Mitchell and the LeBron.
I mean, you're pretty hard on Philly to take that stance, man. Because I could say the same thing about Philly. Sometimes the other guy's just better. I just think but if you're that close every year, that means you're a contender, and you can look at Milwaukee. You can win a championship if you're knocking on the door every year. They're knocking on the door. They need something, and they continuously stay the same.
The only difference that is Embiid has a different level that he can get to.
You were saying the same thing about Mitchell.
Yeah, but I didn't put him in tier one. Like okay. Embiid was
you're right.
A top 5, top 10 player, and he like when he's rolling, and he was like the best player in the NBA for a lot of last season. Like Donovan, as damn good as he is, and I love Donovan, he's not in that tier. He's in a lower case. He's not, he's top 20. He's not top 5 or 10.
That's fair.
Kev? Any last farewells for Luis Scola and Pau Gasol, who are now that this is their 5th Olympics? Scola's averaging 20 for Argentina and one of
He
their,
looks good.
a bad team. Yeah, he looked good. He had like that final hurrah towards the end of the season where he kind of got a curtain call. He got a lot of playing time. He produced. Any memories from the two? Because this might be the last time we're talking about these guys.
Oh, obviously the Pau Gasol, Kobe, that championship. That's probably the lasting memory I have of Pau. But I think he's trying to get back into the league as well. So we'll see. It might not be his ride.
I think it's done. And the way it went in the Olympics was very bad. It was really hard. It was an eyesore to watch. But to your Pau Gasol moment, him overcoming that first loss against Boston and really getting punked and beat up. And I don't know what him and Kobe did in the offseason, but he came back and he was a man when they came back from 3-2 and they actually won the championship. So a shout out to Pau Gasol and that development, and to go, he's one of our better foreign-born players of all time, and he's a future Hall of Famer, if you ask me. And I don't let everybody in. I don't know what you guys are saying. I don't let everybody in, but Gasol gets in for me, and shout out Scola for his, for being this good for so long and really being one of Argentina's greatest basketball players of all time. I'm going to finish with a little plug talk. Wherever you find your podcast, go follow the Triple Play Fantasy franchise. Look out for our baseball, basketball, and football pods that drop every week. Our Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel gives you content every day. This includes Coach's Corner with myself and Coach Coleman, Movie Minutes reviews with Brad and Johnny, Super Fantasy Bros with Jacob and Kevin, Fantasy 15, sports arguments in 15 minutes or less, Between the Seams with Marty and Mac for everything fantasy baseball related, Fantasy Foodies with D. Mindy and his crew. Check us out. We got everything you need. We're going to continue to grind to make this podcast number one pick like Paolo Banchero in 2022. Check us out on Twitter and IG at Triple Play Fantasy. Thanks again from the entire Triple Play Fantasy family for tuning in.